Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and joining us here tonight on this very special occasion in the studio to shed more light on the anniversary of the October War victory and the role of the media back then up until now is Mr. Mohamad Kholy, the international media expert. Mr. Kholy, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Kholy, first of all, it's 47 years now. We were just talking, I mean, in 3 years it's going to be half a century.
Yes.
How different is it now? I mean, a lot has happened in 47 years, talking about politically, economically, socially. Everything changed. Everything developed in 47 years. When you look back at it now, what mainly springs to your mind in terms of development and change that was really sparked and ignited by the 6th of October war victory?
Well, if you want to talk about change, you have to talk about two kinds of changes. The first change is before the October War, which means the 6 years, which started June 5th, 1967,
Yes.
and 6th of October, 1973. Well, I was, you know, at that time I was young. I was a broadcaster in the Voice of the Arabs service. And before that, we had a lot of hopes, you see, that we will defeat Israel and we will do this and do that and we'll lead the Arab world. These were part of a dream. It was a political dream, yes, but well, we are the generation of dreams. And then, as far as the dream was so nice, was so hopeful, the setback, the shock was so terrific on the generation. But the good thing is the originality of the people, of our people, the endurance of our people. Our people assimilated this shock. Well, we were so we didn't despair, but we had a lot of setbacks inside ourselves. As far as the individual, there was a psychological setback. These dreams now are broken and we are in the street and our army is defeated, you see. Well, at that time in the streets, not only, that's the good thing, not only in Cairo or in Egypt, all over the Arab world, and maybe along the third world, because Egypt at that time was a kind of a leader for the liberation call in Africa, along the third world countries. I think we shared a lot of despair and a lot of shocks, but in the same time, 3 days between the 5th of June and the 9th of June, 9th and the 10th of June. At that time, I mean, not myself, of course, we, the people. Who are the people? They were not the politicians. They were not the intelligentsia. They were the people in the villages, in the canals, Suez Canal zone, Upper Egypt, these places. The ordinary people, we call him or her the man, the lady of the street. You see, these people could stretch their hands and they could snatch, or they could drag, they could pull the leader, I mean Gamal Abdel Nasser at that time, you see, from this darkness of despair. And I think they gave him the message that you are the leader. Because of you, we had this problem, and because of you, or thanks to you, we will overcome it. That was a lesson for him and for my generation, that still we have certain hopes, you see. And that was the beginning of the call for change. And the good thing is that our generation, my generation, older generations, younger generations, and Nasser himself, you see, these people started to make for what happened. What happened was so terrific, was so bad, was so a call for despair, for example. But when we tried to do something, we could, thanks to the people. The people themselves let Nasser and the leadership feel that still we have hope because we have a will, the will of the people. And this will was not only Egyptian will, it was, as I can say, the Arab will.
Yes.
And it was not only just some wishful thinking or some encouragement or some words, telegraphs and cable. No, it was translated into work, into material support. I think all over the Arab world, the women were taking off
their jewelry.
Jewelry, and putting it into a kind of a pool in order to buy military equipment or compensate some losses.
Mr. Kholy, now that you've mentioned the 1967 defeat, a lot of blame and criticism was pointed towards the media and journalists. And being a media personality and a journalist yourself, how was it like? Because everyone was really blaming the media on the misinformation and spreading incorrect news to the Egyptian citizens, and then the defeat took place. How did it feel like, and what sort of burden did the media and the journalists at that time have?
Yes. You know, the media in the final analysis is what? It is a reflection. It's a mirror to what's going on in society. So people like us, for the media, we were just, forwards. We were not managers or directors or bosses. But well, what we were receiving from the military command at that time, when you receive something telling you from the military command that we have won such and such military battle. In the voice of the Arabs, you cannot open your or switch on your microphone and say, ladies and gentlemen, we have won this. You cannot do that. You have to have a frame to put all what you have received in a frame. Anthems, musical words, everything, you see. And they try to tell people that we have won. The problem is that we didn't win. But well, we didn't win, but we were not guilty of this thing. We were just the mirror which reflected what we were receiving from the military command. You see?
Yes.
Well, but people had to blame someone or some party, and we were the party who. But well, after that, we were always living with something which we will learn. What is the lesson learned from what's going on? We have to learn a lesson, and that's why, in the Voice of the Arabs, in Arabic, in all over the media service in Egypt, I think we turned it to a kind of a more rational performance of our duties.
Yes.
More rational, much more, quieter, you see, and that resulted during the October War. People didn't believe that we are the victorious party because the media, the Egyptian radio, the Cairo radio was transmitting or giving people a message in a very quiet way, in a very rational way, without any enthusiastic frame that this happened.
And was there a problem of credibility, or the Egyptian people believing for the 6 years before the
maybe
war?
For the months, few months which are after the defeat, you see, there was this crisis of credibility. But step by step, through three things. First thing is that the President Nasser got rid of all the old command, military command, and he appointed people who were so worthy of the thing, who people try to trust. I'm mentioning here, let's say, Abdel Manam Riyad, for example, Mohamad Fawzi, for example, These people were trusted by the circles, the specialized circles, and they gave us some confidence that things will turn up. In the same thing, after the defeat, maybe less than 1 month, there we witnessed or we heard about other people, heard about certain battles. The courageous, very brave, daring Egyptian young men, officers and soldiers, they made, as you know, the Battle of Ras al-Ish, nearest to Port Said, and then came
the resistance.
all these things, the resistance. Our people in Sinai itself, they were so courageous, and they challenged the Israeli propaganda. You see, in Sinai itself, all these things we started to hear. But I think the good thing is we didn't turn into a kind of hell in the media. We didn't always, in the radio and the television, we didn't just give military music, for example. No. We tried to go back to natural or normal life. And I remember that the president asked, during the Second World War, what was the London radio or the BBC transmitting to the people? The answer is that normal life, music, wanted to have normal life, because this is part of our life. But you don't have to make an emergency all the time. But the good thing, in the street, people were so confident and determined that we have to win. You see, how to win? Not only by the military preparedness, no, through what? People were enduring a lot of crises, a lot of problems as far as the everyday needs.
Yes.
You see, certain goods, let alone luxury goods, it was forgotten all the time. But people, they didn't they didn't let anyone feel that they are angry. They change it to a certain level of endurance. In the same time, our citizens in Port Said and the Suez Canal zone have to be moved from the houses into the Delta houses under emergency circumstances. But, well, they endured, they were believing in what's going on. All these things, especially young men. And I want people to know that the university graduates, according to the law, their compulsory military service was just 1 year. And it is still now. At that time, they spent 6 years. They were retained. The retention of these people extended from 1 year to 5 or 6 years. Why? In order to elevate the standard of thinking, planning, and the execution of the military duties. And that was a huge change, upgrading. And it was always the subject of admiration by even the Soviet experts who came here. They faced high-level military Egyptians who could talk to them and who could. So even the standard of fighting itself was something new to us.
Mr. Kholy, now going to the 6th of October of 1973, when you presented the news, when you delivered the news to the Egyptians of the victory, you said that it was subtle, it was credible, it was not extravagant, not magnified or glorified. It was simple, rational, and to the point. Now, a lot of people focus on the 6th of October, but it was almost a 17-day war up until the 23rd of October. How was the coverage and the delivery of the media and the journalists at that time to the Egyptians? How were they still contained? How were the Egyptians receiving the news after hearing about the 6th of October war victory for the next 17 days, hearing about battles being won and territories and land being reclaimed. How was the media and the Egyptians receiving the media and the news during this period?
Yes, as I said, first of all, people wouldn't like to believe what's going on. It was too, you know.
Were they still in denial? Could they not believe that?
But for some hours, the first or second day. But well, you regain the land. And then you hear all over the world, the broadcasting and the media all over the world talking about the Egyptians. And then there was something decisive. I mean, from the political and geographic point of view, there was the crossing of the Suez Canal.
Yes.
Crossing of the Suez Canal by the Egyptians and putting their hand or their existence, I mean, in Sinai. It was something decisive. You didn't need at that time how many kilometers, who won, who was defeated. Now we crossed the Suez Canal. In the same time, and I think in our educational curriculum, we had to, still now, we had to teach the new generation, the young generation, not only the battle itself, the preparation for the battle. It is something like a detective novel. You cannot believe it.
Yes.
You see, all the people in the military command, in the presidential palace, you see, all these people, they were so devoted and so meticulous, you see, and so deceitful for the enemy. And until now, and if we read, we have to read these things. Let's say the Agranat Committee, you see, on the Israeli problem, you feel that we won.
Yes.
And we were worthy of this victory, you see, because we could do and we could compensate, we could make for our tragic mistakes which we committed in the first days of the June 1967.
Mr. Kholy, now you're an international media expert, and you've just mentioned how the international world and international media was covering it. Now, it's definitely a totally different time than now. Everybody knows everything all the time as soon as it happens.
It's normal.
Yeah, but how was the international community and the media viewing what happened in the 1967 defeat and then the switch, the transition to the 1973 victory? How was Egypt perceived? How was this defeat and this victory perceived around the world?
I'll tell you something. The good thing is not only the military show or the military victory. The Arabs, our brothers in the Arab world, were following up the battle for this all over the 6 years. Some of them, I'm mentioning the late President Hawari Boumediene, the president of Algeria. These people there, they still were remembering that Egypt was their only support when they were trying to face France for their independence. And even South al-Arab, the voice of the Arabs, you see, it was one of the battles in the media since November 1954, you see, and South al-Arab was devoted to this thing. Anyway, so President Boumediene went from his country, Algeria, to the Soviet Union. And he met President Brezhnev, the Soviet president, and he asked for certain military, highly advanced military equipment for the Egyptian army. And the Soviet party told him that it is very expensive. He pulled a check from his pocket and said, well, I'm ready to pay now. Let's say this. When you hear these things, you feel that now something returned to you.
Yes.
You were with them during the 50s, and now they are with you. In the same time, as you asked about the European or the American
Yes.
or the international world opinion at that time. At that time, there was something new. What is it? The Arabs are now, can be, at that time, number six, the sixth international power in the world. Why? Because the oil Arabs, oil people in the Gulf, in Libya, in Saudi Arabia, they threatened to boycott
Yes.
the world if there was no support to the Egyptian army or the Egyptian battle. At that time, the Arabs are about to be the sixth power in the world. I'll tell you something which is maybe somewhat personal. October 1973, as you said, October 17, let's say, it ended, the military action ended. September at that year, maybe 23rd September, the General Assembly of the United Nations took its historic resolution. What is it? To make the Arabic language the sixth international language all over the system of the United Nations.
Yes. Well, that's,
And
I mean,
that
talking
gave me
about
some
solidarity.
chance because I went
Yes.
through, I was the first, from the first team
Yes.
who worked at that time as an international translator.
Yes.
That was why, because they respected, the Arabs became respected at that time, thanks to our soldiers, our officers, young people who made this thing.
Yes.
It was reflected positively for us all over the world.
Yes.
The Arabs.
Yes, and it was one of the first manifestations of Arab solidarity and Arabism as well. Ladies and gentlemen, 47 years on now, still Egypt, under the leadership of President Sisi, is on its path and road to development and prosperity. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
فلسفة الخطة حققت كل اللي احنا عايزينه وكل الذي يكرهه العدو. حجمنا القوات الجوية بتاعته، أرغمناه على أنه يقاتل بالمواجهة، وهو لا يحب هذا الأسلوب من القتال إطلاقا. فرضنا عليه قتال لمدة طويلة، نستطيع أن نطيل المدة شهور دون أن نتأثر وهو يتأثر.
ولقد كنت أعرف جوهر قواتنا المسلحة، ولم يكن حديثي عنها رجما بالغيب ولا تكهنا. لقد خرجت من صفوف هذه القوات المسلحة وعشت بنفسي تقاليدها، وتشرفت بالخدمة في صفوفها وتحت ألويتها. إن سجل هذه القوات كان باهرا.
أكتوبر 73 بقاء شعب ونماء أمة.
47 years on October War inspiration of development and prosperity. Since Egypt has conquered Israel in the October War 47 years ago and after signing a peace treaty with it, the country has oriented all its efforts for peace and development at various fields, as well as strengthening its positions among leading nations to become a modern, stable and great state. Thanks to the exerted efforts by the successive leadership, Egypt has managed to promote itself and amend its losses during the war times. Late Presidents Mohamad Anwar al-Sadat and Mohammed Hosni Mubarak have started the journey of the development of the nation to transfer Egypt into a modern and strong state. And since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has taken the helm, he has realized many achievements on the political and economic fronts. Many mega and national projects have been executed, including the new Suez Canal and its economic zone. new cities such as the new administrative capital, the new Alamein and new Mansoura. This in addition to huge industrial projects on the oil, transportation, communications and information technology and electricity fields and other domains of the economy. Egypt has become a leading country that plays a pivotal role to attain peace, stability and security in the Middle East region and Africa, and has pioneered international collaborating efforts to confront and eradicate terrorism. Many lessons have been taught to successive generations on how to defend the land and rights and how to become successful and great. Egyptians are proud of their armed forces and leadership, which exert utmost effort to maintain the state and realize peace and stability. The Armed Forces Day is now a public holiday to celebrate the day when combined Egyptian and Syrian military forces launched a surprise attack on Israel and crossed into the Sinai Peninsula, which marked the beginning of the October. Late President al-Sadat planned the attack in an attempt to bolster Egyptian and Arab morale and to regain control of the Sinai territory that had been lost to Israel during the June Six-Day War in 1967. The plan met with initial success when more than 80,000 Egyptian soldiers crossed the Bar-Leaf line, a massive fortification built by the Israelis to withstand such attacks.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion marking the anniversary of the October War victory. Mr. Kholy, now, that was 47 years ago. Now, Egypt is waging different wars. Wars on terrorism, wars on corruption, wars on pandemic. Many different wars, and it's not just Egypt, it's the whole world.
Yes.
So, in a way, the definition or the evolution of a war is kind of different. I mean, military confrontations are still there, but there's more diversity and more evolution for the war. Also, simultaneously, the media and journalism is different. The media has taken different shapes and forms, and everyone is informed instantly everywhere around the world, but also could be misinformed instantly around the world, talking about rumors and everything of the sort. How do you see the progression, and what sort of criteria should journalists and the media abide by to safeguard any sort of credibility for the news and the message delivered to the citizens? And also, what should the citizen, how will the citizen be able to differentiate between right stories and news and misinformation?
In my humble opinion, we have to redefine things. In my generation, let's say, my generation grew up starting from the 50s, 60s, and go on. At that time, the media, first of all, was the radio, and then the television. Our television started in 1960, you see, and it started as anything, very modestly, you see. It didn't have its impact as far as the radio had. And the former generations were just satisfied with the newspapers, the paper newspapers and everything, and that's all. And even before that, there was the speeches by the leaders of our 1919 revolution and everything.
Yes.
But now things are changed so drastically that we have to redefine things. What are the media now? The media now is, first of all, as they always say, the social media or the social communication means, you see. Anyone in any place, in a very far forgotten village in our country, can sit, you see, alone, regardless of his or her standard of experience, education, awareness, and loyalty. Some people are not so loyal to the country or to the cause of our people. Some people have their own agendas, and these agendas, by definition, contradict our agenda, our popular or our people's agenda. Therefore, you have a lot of new challenges from these new media, you see. And therefore, we have to be aware of what's going on in our life now. In the same time, I think our problem here is the terrorism. You see, the terrorist groups, you see, want to exploit sometimes the ignorance, the illiteracy, the low level of awareness, you see, because sometimes you find university students with very low awareness about our nationalistic goals, you see. We have to be aware of this thing. And this is, first of all, the duty of our present media now, our national media. In the same time, you have to follow with these people what's going on in the world, because the world changed. In my time, there was the two blocks only, the Soviet bloc and the capitalist bloc or the Western bloc. Now we have a lot of blocks. And even we were the leaders at that time, the 60s, let's say, of Africa and of the Arab world. No longer. Why? Because our people, the peoples of the African continent and even the Arab world try to step forward, sometimes maybe surpassing us. Well, we have to be aware of this, realistically speaking. But first of all, in my opinion, the fight against two things: political illiteracy and the terrorism. But we are so now maybe lucky. Why? Sinai Peninsula was a source of, let's say, of terrorism. You see, I think now it is a source of hope. This is very good. But we have to try to service this new phenomenon in our lives.
The thing is, over the past few years, we've seen a lot of projects, national projects, mega projects. We've seen a lot of developmental infrastructural projects, and a lot of the many media outlets and maybe journalists or terrorists or, as you've mentioned, politically illiterate and unaware people would spread and try to undermine false news and the achievements that have been made by the Egyptian government and people. How can you stop this? I mean, in a perfect world you would stop it, but maybe it's extremely difficult. But how can you counter these misinformations and these rumors, and what can be done?
I think, first of all, you have to have your fighters, generations of young men all over the place. You have to communicate always with these people, either in the parliament, in the universities, and in the youth organizations, all the time, you see. And personal communication is very effective. Don't only just issue a statement. No one will read it, by the way. But you have to go. By meaning you, I mean this person who is responsible for this sector or for that thing. And people should go and see what's going on. I'm sorry to all the time, I'm saying my time.
It's all right.
When I was in the secondary school.
That's why you're here.
We used, the government used to arrange for us as small, young people, students in the secondary school, journeys, trips to Aswan, you see, to see what is this high dam, you see, and we were educated through going there and trying to live what's going on and to talk to the people who were working at that time. You have to do things like that all the time. I mean,
Mr. Kholy, now that you've mentioned it, I'm sorry, but we're running out of time, but you've just mentioned that any person with a laptop or a phone can be a journalist, can report something, can write any sort of news, be it true or false. Anybody can be a journalist, anybody with a phone with a camera can be a cameraman. So, and you've mentioned education. Does that mean that maybe people should be educated on how to use the media and how to report the media part of their academic curriculum that they would learn at schools?
Sure, but at the same time, you have to follow up these things. I don't mean that everyone, you have to follow everyone. No,
Yes.
it will never happen. But well, all the time, you have to be aware that rumors are there. So don't let a rumor spread. Even if you know that it's so limited. Well, it's a rumor, and as you know, we knew through our media studies that a rumor always spreads.
Yes.
You see, by definition. So you have all the time to use our media thing.
Yes.
And don't rely only on the governmental media. You see, no, the political party media, the parliament media, the associations and society, what they call the civil society media.
Yes, yes.
These things should be mobilized in order to face this kind of challenges.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you've just heard in this special edition marking the anniversary of the 47th October War victory, media played a role in 1967, played a role in 1973, and is definitely playing a role now, if not even bigger and more important, in the development, the political, social, and economic development of the country's affairs. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the anniversary marking the October War victory. But let me thank my very distinguished guest, the international media expert. No guest would have been better for such a special occasion, special topic, Mr. Mohamad Kholy. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up tonight covering the anniversary of the October War victory. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.